Hello. So, in this session, I want to talk about Passover. Passover is a feast, it's a celebration in the Hebraic culture adopted by the Jews. Um, and it's one of the most significant parts in the life of Yeshua HaMashiach. It is the scenery, it's the timetable of his crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection process. Um, Sadly, it's been tainted with a lot of things, and many of the revelations, many of the impacts, much of the power of the whole thing has been robbed uh, from most of us, to say the least. So I'll start off by just talking about Passover itself. So, Passover is a celebration. Typically, if we're going by biblical narrative, it began the celebration with Moses while they were in Egypt during the plagues, in which they were instructed to take the blood of the lamb and put it over the doors, as the death angel was released overnight, and wherever the blood was present, death was not permitted to enter. So it became a yearly practice where they used the blood of the lamb in order to ward off death. Now, this is the role that blood plays. If you're talking about the life of the Messiah and you talk about being covered in the blood, this is the revelation. When you get into the Hebrew alphabet, you get to the fourth letter, which is the Dalet, that being the door, specifically the bloody door. This is the door that protects you from death, that locks you in a covenant. So it becomes more about where you are than who you are or what you did. It's just safety by location. I love the way that the Tao Te Ching puts it, where you dwell in a place where death cannot enter. Well, this is the true revelation of Passover. It's a reminder of the blood. It's a return back to your true immortal self. Passover is the feast of immortality. And it's actually much ancient than Moses and that particular event. It was a Kemetic ritual related to the Neter Asar, by the Greeks known as Osiris, where they would take bread and bake it in the shape of Asar, and they would cut it into pieces and share it amongst the people. And then they would wash it down with wine. Asar, in their culture, represented the Father. All that is good of God, the fullness of God. So them taking the body, well, for one, they were reenacting the myth or the legend, but it was showing a level of significance. Each of you, let's just say we have a room of 300 people, everyone gets a piece. This is saying that everyone in attendance, everyone has a piece of God. Or as I would say, everyone has a puzzle piece. Everyone has a divine spark on the inside of them. Everyone's divine because you are what you eat. So this is the idea of God being separate, all those pieces being found in us, and being unified when we fellowship. So that gives an importance to fellowship. Well, when all of us are together, the fullness of God is revealed, where you might have a piece and I have a piece, and then all of us get together and we get the fullness of God revealed. So that gives us a beautiful picture of community. I've heard it said that if we're talking the body of Christ or the body of the Messiah, we're looking at each individual person as like a cell in a body. Each of us carrying the genetic record of the whole, yet playing a part. And this is something that was echoed throughout the Gospels, something that Yeshua was trying to portray. This was his message. When he went to people who would today be considered non-believers and tell them, don't you know that ye are gods? This is a reference to that divine spark. When we go to John, where it says that the word became flesh and dwelt among men, there's two ways to look at that, and they're both true. where you get the Word that became flesh as a historical figure, that being Yeshua. But then you have the divine spark of creation that exists within all of creation itself, which means that there isn't anything in creation that's lacking God, just the majority of creation that's ignorant of God, ignorant to what's already in them. Nothing exists without God being present, because God is it's all pervasive. It's the all in all. Doesn't mean the all is agreeing with all. Doesn't mean that the presence of the all is the all signing off on some of these practices and some of these things. It's just that at the very least, if you look behind the rubble, you look behind the garbage, you find God. That God can literally be found in everything. Divinity can be found anywhere. If you're willing to look deep enough, if you're willing to look beyond the obvious, peer into the innermost, you find divinity. So this feast of Passover, this feast of the immortals, as I like to call it, let's talk about blood a bit more. Well, let's go all the way back to Genesis with Adam. Well, the name Adam itself is two parts. You get Aleph and Dam. Aleph meaning God's spirit or God's breath, and then you get Dam meaning blood. Adam means God's blood. So what was the importance of the death, burial, and resurrection? What was the purpose of the crucifixion process? Well, the eternal Son, who carries the pure genetic record of humanity, who called himself an Adam, came and shared his blood with us. Blood is the genetic record. It's information. This was a reminder. Or as he said, this you do in remembrance of me. That the blood is for our remembrance. The body is for our transfiguration. You are what you eat, but the blood carries memory. The wine is the memory of the grape. The blood is the information. It's the storage unit of the person. Well, the houses, the full record of humanity is found in the blood of Yeshua as the firstborn son, as the eternal son by which all sons emanate from, who I would consider Heru if we're looking at the Kemetic culture. You have the full record, this perfect blood, everything that the mother is, everything that the father is, this perfect record. This perfected information being revealed as a reminder to a forgotten legacy of their true nature. So the purpose of the death, burial, and resurrection was for us to remember what we were in eternity, that we are the same thing as the eternal Son, that we're perfect, that we're eternal, that we're immortal, that our promise, that our true place in the world exists beyond the idea of mortality, that we were created as immortals, that we were created as divinity. We were created as emanations. We were created with dominion. We were created with this space. And that's what it's as a reminder for. The blood carries a memory. And honestly, you miss that with Easter, which has nothing to do with Yeshua. You miss that with communion, which has nothing to do with Passover, really. They kept the sacrament, stole the revelation, just left you with a practice. And it's up to your own reverence to produce something. You don't get this out of the replacements. You don't get this out of a Resurrection Sunday, where Passover brings you the full process of realization and manifestation, where you actually enter into your state of dominion. This is where your promise is revealed to you in eternity. Where when you're looking at Yeshua riding in on the donkey, well, the church didn't know what that meant. The Romans couldn't tell you. It didn't come from Rome. It came from Kemet. The donkey represented Set or Satan, proving that before he went in, he already had dominion. He went into Calvary. He went into the crucifixion process perfected. He went in whole, which means he wasn't doing anything for his own attainment. That it was entirely community service on behalf of the whole world. That it took the blood of God to restore the blood of God. Remember, Adam means the blood of God. That we were about to experience the widest spread blood transfusion in the history of mankind. Access to a collective data bank of divine intelligence. And this was the beauty of Passover. Again, the blood wards off death because your true intentions, the true record of the blood that you were created with, your eternal blood knows no death because it knows no separation, aka it knows no sin. Therefore, death cannot exist in a body that remembers. So at the very least, I encourage you to remember that you are eternal, that you are God. That as far as being, there's no difference between you and God. You're the same thing. Maybe a different level of competence, but at the very least, the same thing. You carry that same record. You carry that immortality. You're made with that immortality. Death has no real claim to you other than the claim you give it. Or as the Bible puts it, my people perish due to a lack of knowledge. If you want to do God a favor, if you want to honor the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua, live. Remember. And that's all, y'all. I don't want to ramble on too long. Links are in the descriptions for all my projects. Communities, books, community service, fundraisers, all that stuff is in the links. In the descriptions down below. Until next time, y'all be blessed.